Hey guys, welcome back to another lesson. Today we're going to look at some tricks for changing keys, modulating that is. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to play you a little piece I sort of wrote down for the purpose of this lesson, and then we'll sort of go through it and I'll break down some of the tricks. So first of all, the piece itself. Alright, let's go through what I just played. First of all, let's start with the keys. So the key of this melody changes several times throughout the song. First thing is, let's identify which parts are played in which key. So here on the screen you can see now the full chord layout of this piece, and let's go through the different parts. The first part is the piece begins in the key of C major. Still in the key of C major. Now it makes a key transition. Let's try to see if we can figure out the center of this key. So this kind of gravitates towards an A major. So this would be in the key of A major. Now it quickly changes to another key, the center of which is this D major. So now we're in the key of D major, and then we make another transition. The center of which is obviously A major, so we're back at A major, and then we make the final last transition in the piece. The center of which is obviously C major, so we're back in the key in which we've started out. So we've had a couple of different key changes throughout the song, and I'd like to sort of go through the tricks, or maybe the sort of, I guess, recurring theme that sort of underlies most of them. Let's look at the first transition from the key of C major to A major. It happens kind of abruptly, where we have this motif that then gets repeated in a different key. So first of all, the first thing to note is that changing between keys is usually done, or is best done, when you have a motif that you repeat in one key and then transition to a different key. So you're kind of giving the listener a point, like a safe point, a harbor, which they can relate to while introducing new information at the same time. So you kind of, when you change key, you do want to keep some things the same. Now, why A major? I could have transitioned actually to any key because the transition itself was abrupt. I mean, I could have played something like this maybe. And then maybe transition to so this is a different key, and of course if we sort of carry out this to its conclusion, we can identify the key we're in just by seeking out the tonal center, where are all of these chords gravitating towards. Which would be G major. Now, in my opinion, this doesn't sound as good as this particular transition to A major. And the reason, I think, I mean, it's not really a deep reason, but the point is that there are some abrupt key changes that sound better than others. Probably the worst sounding is what's kind of known as the truck driver's gear change, where you just go up a semitone, or so maybe you'd have and then you'd like to repeat it in a different, higher, just one key, or a key one semitone higher. That's probably the key change that you can make. It sounds really, really kind of corny and cliche. But there are other changes that do sound good, and probably the best changes are those that are either 3 semitones or 4 semitones away from the key you're in. And you can just hear this by taking, let's say, starting with a C major, and then going down 3 semitones to an A major, then another 3 semitones to an F sharp, another 3 semitones to an E flat major, then back to a C major. So if you just play them in succession, it has this kind of interesting sort of magical feel to it, which also was, I guess, pretty in the vein of this piece I just played. It sounds like kind of like a sort of maybe a soundtrack to a magical, some sort of fantasy movie. Another abrupt key change that works really well is one that is 4 semitones. So again, let's take this C major. Let's play the chord that is 4 semitones below it. A flat major, another 4 semitones, E major, and then another 4 semitones, C major. That's also a pretty successful change of key. And it even sounds better when you mix them. So when you do 3 and 4 and 3 and 4, or maybe 4 and 3 and 4 and 3. So let's have a listen. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, and so on. So it's something for you to experiment with. I think these changes, these particular changes of 3 and 4 semitones sound really good, and if you're looking at the key change, you probably want to consider them at least. And in fact, you can, when I just did this change of key, I could have kept on going downwards. Sorry. So we're just transitioning between chords which are 3 or 4 semitones apart and kind of usually alternating between the 3 and the 4. And it sounds pretty good, actually, at least to my ears. So you can keep on doing this and just stop when you reach the particular key you're interested in. Of course, this wouldn't really fit in any song or any genre, but it's something, again, to consider. Going back to the piece I played, we have we're now in the key of A major, and the next key we transition to is the key of D major. So we have which has the tonal center of D. Now, this is not a true tonal center in the sense that your listener is still kind of in the key of A, so you can, if your transition is brief enough, you can go back to the original key, which is exactly what we do. And we do this by playing a fairly famous chord progression, which is the 6 flat major, 7 flat major to a 1 major. So we have an F. We could have a G in there as well. In this particular realization, I omitted the G, but the point is that the 6 flat major leads fairly well into the tonic, the first. In this particular case, the F leads into the A, and again, this ties into the fact that F is 4 semitones away from A. So again, you can think of this as an abrupt transition where I take my D, my tonal center, I go up 3 semitones and 4 semitones. So from D to F to A. Personally, I think of this as not having left A major for long enough and being able to return to it fairly quickly if I do it in an interesting way. And again, the way I did this was going to this 6 flat major and resolving to the tonic, which is A. Now from A major, I was looking to get back to the original key just for the sake of demonstration. And the way I did this was noting that the A can be thought of, this would be a 2, or this, you can think of it as the secondary dominant of this D minor in the key of C major. In other terms, if you have a particular major chord, it can lead fairly easily into a major or minor chord which is 5 semitones above it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I'm in D minor, I'm sort of back, I'm in the 2 or the second degree of the key I've started out from, which is C major. So once I'm back here, I'm climbing up the C major scale. I really sort of back home. The moment I hit this D minor and I hit the subsequent C major over bass of E, that was it. This cements the key change in the ear of the listener. So we've outlined a couple of different tricks here. You can have abrupt key changes if you keep your motif. If you have a strong motif and you just play it in a different key. The 3 and the 4 rule, where keys 3 and 4 semitones apart, are worth considering. And of course you can alternate the 3 and the 4. And using the sort of the 2-5-1 as a modulating trick. And you can think of, or maybe the 6-2-5-1. You could think of this as this A as the 6 in the key of C major, to the 2 minor in the key of C major, to the 5, well, basically you only need the 6 to the 2. That's it. I hope this lesson has given you some ideas to work with and that you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.